one brother. They wanna see me cry, don't know why. Anyway, mulungu sama bona na mulai.
Calm down. Yo, this your body, you put in my heart for lockdown. Yo, you sweet life, phantom. If I tell you say I love you, you know they for me young girl. Oh, young girl, no tell me no.
We play nothing but power hits.
Power FM Livingston brings you the best mix of music, entertainment, and affordable advertising rates that appeal to your business needs. Power 102.4 FM carries a unique fusion of local and international content that provides you with a unique spectrum of programming that is reflective of all your advertising needs and more. Get real value for your money. Relax and let Power FM Livingston do all the work. Advertise with us today. Call us on 0963 495741 or email us on info@powerfmzambia.com. Power FM Livingston, the tourist capital's number one.
Voice of the People is a dynamic and interactive radio phone-in show that gives listeners a platform to voice their opinions on current affairs, social issues, and community concerns. With engaging discussions, expert insights, real-time audience participation. Voice of the People.
A very good morning to you. My name is Patrick Chifwambo, joining the Queens of Breakfast this morning on Power Breakfast. Today on Voice of the People, we are joined by Economic Analyst and Private Sector Development Association, PSDA Chairperson Yusuf Dodia, to discuss pressing issues affecting the nation in economic terms. A very good morning to you, sir.
It's great to be with you. Good morning.
After a long time indeed.
It's been a while.
Let's get right into it, Mr. Dodia, if you will. From your economic lens, how do you rate the performance of the economy under the new Dawn government?
Well, firstly, I think from my perspective, government is government. Mm-hmm. And we change governments every now and then, but they pass on the baton from one government to another, and it's always our government. And in the last couple of years, we've seen our government trying to get this economy on its feet. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of focus on debt rescheduling, debt adjustments, to see that at the end of the day, our budget still has something left for developing the country, while we continue to service debt and remain a friend of the creditors, so that should there come a time when we need support, that support is forthcoming. And this has been maybe the preoccupation in the last couple of years since the last election. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of made some good progress in terms of debt rescheduling. The dialogues with the multilateral creditors and bilateral creditors seem to have produced results. Of course, there is the prospect that what you're doing is kicking the can down the road. In other words, you're not solving the problem, you're just pushing it further down. You'll find it after 5 years, after 10 years. But it gives us enough breathing space to be able to build capacity. And maybe that's where we're having a challenge in building capacity. We have had the export proceeds tracking framework in place for a year and a half now. We've not really seen the benefit of it until the end of May this year. So from January to December last year, we really didn't see any value coming out of this framework because the kwacha continued to deteriorate. The kwacha continued to deteriorate from January to May this year, where at the end of May, the kwacha or the dollar was buying at 28 kwacha. But in the first 2 weeks of June, we saw a rapid improvement in the kwacha by about 20 to 25%. Moving from 28 kwacha to a dollar to around 22, 23 kwacha to a dollar. And some immediate benefits began to show. For example, if you bought a ticket on Zambian Airways to go to Johannesburg at the end of May, you'd have paid about 9,000 kwacha for the ticket. By the 14th of June, you were paying 6,500 for the very same ticket, because any transaction in foreign currency was already being affected in a positive way. Other trade related transactions take a bit of time. Generally, the bulk of the trade cycle is about 90 days. If you order something from, and let's not beat about the bush, most of the stuff that we order comes in from China. If you order something from China, let's say it was in the last week of May, 28 kwacha to $1. You order a container of shoes. You're paying 28 kwacha to the dollar. It takes a week to process that order. It takes another week to pay. It takes around 6 weeks for that order to be shipped by sea to get to Dar es Salaam. Another week to clear in Dar. Another week to come to Zambia. So you're looking 8 weeks roughly. And then you're looking at being able to sell on the Zambian market. So that's week 9, 10, 11, 12. So 90 days, 3 months is our trade cycle. So one expects that when the kwacha gains value, you have to wait a month or two before you begin to see the benefits of it because of that trade cycle. Even if the competition manages to import the same shoes 2 weeks later, 14th of June at 22 kwacha to $1, it's going to take another 8 to 10 weeks for that consignment to arrive in Zambia, the cheaper consignment. Right. So business houses are negotiating their prospects as the economy evolves in a positive direction. The other thing which is very important is that we have seen many times in the past, kwacha can be strong on Monday and weak on Friday. Right. So again, if it fluctuates too much, prices don't really adjust. There's a lot of uncertainty, and businesses hedge against inflation. In other words, they price at the highest kwacha to dollar transaction rate in order not to lose. But we've seen the kwacha stay strong and get stronger for the whole month of June, and now we're almost coming to the end of July. We're seeing that the kwacha still is below 24 kwacha to $1. And this is the thing that is going to make sustained changes in the cost of doing business in Zambia. And so from that perspective, we've done well. And, there's a saying, they say better late than never. We didn't implement the framework the way we should have. January 2024 would have seen good results by April, May of 2024. We are seeing what should have happened in April and May happening now in June and July of 2025, a year later. But it's moving in the right direction. And if it is based solely on export proceeds being brought into the Zambian economy, then it's sustainable. But if our kwacha gains value because the Bank of Zambia decides to release cash on the market, then obviously it's not sustainable. It will happen for a few weeks and then die off. But I'm fairly convinced that we are seeing the benefits of the export proceeds tracking framework. I think the governor of the Bank of Zambia made a comment about it a week or two ago. So maybe my speculations can now be backed up by announcements being made by the Bank of Zambia. So on that front, I think we're moving in the right trajectory now, but we do have other challenges. Some of them are to do with policy. Do we have the right policy in certain areas that is going to promote the growth of our economy? And those are some of the areas that I think we need to reflect on.
You say that we veered off the framework, the IMF framework. What exactly did we not do right?
Okay, firstly, it's not an IMF framework. This is a Bank of Zambia initiative
that was proposed to,
which was announced.
Okay. Because
the Bank of Zambia made a decision in October of 2023 to put this framework in. Now, maybe it's important to understand what's this framework all about.
Right.
The export proceeds tracking framework says all exports coming out of Zambia will be recorded by ZRA, by the authorities. Your banks are looking at invoices and quotations and things like that. And then when you export the products, whether it's copper, cement, sugar, cut flowers, agriculture products, livestock products, you are required by the framework, by regulation, to bring your export earnings and deposit them in a Zambian bank. When you look at the statistics for Zambia, they show that Zambia's biggest trading partner is Switzerland. And I ask you, what are we exporting to Switzerland?
Copper.
Yes. Copper money. Not copper, but money. Copper money. The copper is going to China, India, and other places, but the transactions are being done in Switzerland. And that money is sitting in Switzerland's bank accounts. And the Swiss people are borrowing that money and coming to Zambia and giving us loans of our own money, which should have been sitting in Zambian bank accounts. And if it was in Zambian bank accounts, then you and me would be borrowing that money directly from our banks, not from some foreign bank out there. So the framework says that money must come to Zambia. Deposit in a Zambian bank account, sort out your ZRA, your accounting issues, because you've exported copper, you've shown that money has come into Zambia, your accounts are clean, and then deal with your expenses. Oh, you owe money for insurance abroad, pay. You bought earth moving equipment, you're able to pay. You have loans from abroad, you pay. The good thing about the framework demanding that the revenues come into Zambia is that it makes accounting easier for ZRA and Bank of Zambia, but it also helps us to be good global citizens. What do I mean by that? Unofficial estimates tell us that we export between $30 and $50 million worth of copper every day. And this money is going to Swiss bank accounts, as the statistics show us. Swiss bank accounts are largely secret bank accounts. What is to stop whoever's putting their money in Switzerland to use this money to finance terrorism, to finance drug trafficking, to finance gun running, to finance arms trades, which are all against United Nations charters that we've signed up to. So when that money comes to Zambia, where our Zambian bank accounts are not secretive, then when that money moves out of Zambia, it doesn't move out with somebody just signing a piece of paper and saying move $10 million to Afghanistan, move $20 million to wherever. You know, it is, those transactions take place with documentation, invoices, quotations, agreements. When you borrowed money, you've signed an agreement, and so we start doing what we're supposed to do as a good global citizen to avoid allowing resources from Zambia to finance illicit activities out there. So that's our commitment to the international community. But the big value out of it for Zambians is that it means Zambia as an economy is recapitalized to the tune of $30 to $50 million a day. And that means that retiree who turned their house, which they got as their terminal benefits, into a guest house, you know, a lodge with 4 rooms, because it's 4 bedrooms. Instead of that person earning every day a 700 and 800, just enough to feed their families, they're able to walk into a bank and the bank says, your house is located in such a beautiful place. Break it down completely. Build a 3-story building, it's 50 rooms. At 500 kwacha, you are looking at 25,000 kwacha per day in revenues from your lodge. What kind of a taxpayer do you become? You're paying, even if you're just paying withholding tax, 10% of 25,000 per day is 2,500. 2,500 per day times 30 days is, 75,000 kwacha in taxes that you are paying to ZRA. So suddenly you become a big taxpayer from being a struggling to survive owner of a guest house. Now you can extrapolate this to other industries, whether it's a bakery, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's you name it. Zambians would be able to grow their businesses, and through growing their businesses they become big taxpayers, and you don't have to borrow money from the IMF and other people to run your economy. You are running it from your own resources.
Well, one would ask, why is this framework coming in place, it being put in place now?
Well, yeah.
The big idea.
Why didn't it happen 60 years of independence? Right. You know, we have to understand that, in my view, the world is at war. And the war is not with guns. It's with dollars and cents. It's with economies. And one of the only countries that has recognized this from day one is China. Back in the 1950s, they recognized that you can't get anywhere unless you have economic power. And in Africa and in Zambia, I remember back in the day, the colonial masters used to speak a language called Lapalapa, Fanikalo. And they would say, Lo malo enakawena, but lo mali enakamina. The land belongs to you, but the money belongs to me. And this is basically the neo-colonial construct that we continue to live through, where we've got political independence, we vote in leaders and so forth, but economic independence is still a far-fetched goal that we have not yet achieved. So what has happened, and this now brings me to, you mentioned IMF. Quite recently, I had the privilege of meeting the IMF managing director, who came to Zambia about 2 months ago. And a group of us were invited to meet with the IMF director. And this is a funny story, because it's to do with our own prejudices and the way we see life. When I read the name, I read Dr. Nigel Clark. I said, wow, this chap's from the UK. And when I went in the room, I tried to identify who he was, and it turned out to be a fellow black man, a Jamaican, with a very, very British name, and fairly young, probably mid to late 40s, maybe early 50s. And the IMF gave us this whole story about how they're trying to support Zambia, debt restructuring, blah, 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 all those kinds of things. And I remember asking them and saying, look, here you are. You've come here to Zambia ostensibly to support us and help us. But I want to become very simple. If I went to my bank and I said to my bank, I've got this takeaway, and I want to borrow money to expand it, to improve it, the first thing the bank would say is, where are you currently getting your money from? I say, I have a salary. How much? 20,000 kwacha per month. Okay, how much do you pay for rent? 7,000. And then query me on how I'm using my money. Then the bank would say, you know, you really don't need my help. You just live too expensively. Downsize your accommodation from 7,000 to 3,500. Move from Kabulonga and go and stay in Thornpark, you know, where you can afford it. So right size your lifestyle so that you can have a bit of excess money to invest in your own business. And then when we, the bank, see that you're doing pretty well, we'll come and support you unreservedly. It's exactly the same formula when a son or daughter goes to the parent and says, I want to start a business. The parent uses the same kind of analysis. You know, God does the same with you. You know, they say God helps those who help themselves. And so I said to IMF, I don't understand. You're coming here, you're giving us 1.3 billion extended credit facility, and it's credit, it's not for free. Then you're asking us to be good people, and you'll give us 188 million out of that 1.3 billion as a staff development drawdown for whatever we want to use it, you know, improve the quality of the civil service or whatever. And yet you are seeing us losing $30 to $50 million a day of copper and you don't want to talk about it. I don't understand. You know, you are very prepared to see our economy bleeding foreign currency, and then you want to talk about some useless discussion of 188 million and let mobile service providers pay some taxes on what do you call this, mobile transfers. You know, all you are doing is touching the poor people and squeezing them. You're not talking about the elephant in the room, the huge amount of money that's leaving this country through exports. And of course, they couldn't say much about it, because it's very obvious that the IMF's focus is not looking at practical steps to get Zambia on its feet and have a vibrant economy. They appear to be looking at maintaining the neo-colonial grip on Africa, where we should continue to export our minerals and continue to struggle to survive with the crumbs that fall to the ground. So it's something that when you say, why hasn't it happened? It hasn't happened because of pressure. In my own experiences with the export proceeds tracking framework, with the meetings I have had at the Bank of Zambia before implementation, there was a huge outcry. Why are you doing this? Why are you pushing us mines to declare these things? And the Bank of Zambia and many of us said, but that's what you would do in any other country.
Right.
There would be no hidden transactions. They would have to be transparent and visible. So why are you complying in other countries, but in Zambia you are not interested? And half of our huge investors don't only speak to the authorities, they speak to the highest leadership to try to undermine the development of our economy. So am I able to answer your question, why has it not happened?
Right.
I think we will have to speculate that pressure from big investors is not pressure that you can ignore. They have power.
Well, let's address the big elephant in the room. Yesterday, the Financial Intelligence Center put out a report, and they flagged $3.5 billion in suspected illicit financial flows, mainly orchestrated through shell companies with little or no commercial activities. What does this mean for the economic dispensation of Zambia?
Well, if you have heard what I've said, if you look at $30 to $50 million worth of copper exports every day, and then you look at the official figures and it's showing you that it is 5 million per day, this big disparity between 5 million and 30 to 50 million is an indication of illicit financial flows, that there's under declaration of exports. There's a lot of dodging the system, and that's what the Financial Intelligence Center report is trying to show. To me, it's just the tip of the iceberg. The thing with FIC is they look at what is put on paper. So here I am as a mining company. I'm exporting every day 100 tons or 200 tons of copper, but on my paperwork I'm writing
20 tons.
20 tons. And then FIC looks at the 20 tons and then looks at how is this transaction taking place. And even there they find that there's anomalies. So the illicit financial flows they're showing of 3.5 billion in 2024, the whole year, is the tip of the iceberg. It's very small compared to the reality on the ground. So for us to deal with this, we just have to be more stringent as a country. If you've traveled around, especially up in the Copper Belt and Luapula province, Northwestern province, you will see things that boggle your mind. For example, you have trucks coming out of the Northwestern province, which is now our mining center. Instead of using these nice roads coming from the mining areas through Solwezi to Chingola, and then using the Copperbelt route all the way to Kapirimposhi, turn left and you go to Nakonde, or come into Lusaka, turn left, Great East Road, through Malawi, or pass through Lusaka, go to Kafue, turn right, go to Livingston, or continue straight, go to Chirundu. Those are the traditional routes.
Right.
And those are the routes where there are way bridges. There's way bridges in Kitwe, there's way bridge in Kapirimposhi, way bridge now in Chongwe, new one coming up, way bridge at Kafue. If you go into Northwestern Province, you'll see trucks going from Northwestern to Kaoma on the bad roads. Kaoma to Livingston, Livingston to Sioma, Sioma to Katima Mulilo into Namibia, avoiding the way bridges. You'll see trucks going from the Copper Belt, going through the Pedicle, or even into the Congo, coming out at Nchelenge. If you look at the pontoon on Lake Mweru, it's continuously packed with trucks. And yet, Lake Mweru, the area there is like a village. But there are more trucks than there are villages. And then they'll be going from Chelenge via Kawambwa and Luingu, going to Kasama, Nakonde. You've missed the way bridges. So it just goes to show that there is a physical activity going on to avoid being detected by avoiding way bridges. Because you see, when you're exporting, what are you doing? You are filling in an export document. You go to a way bridge where ZRA see that what's on the export papers is exactly what's on the truck, 1, 2, 3 times, depending on which route you are using, 1, 2 way bridges. When you leave the country, everything is being balanced up. But where you miss these way bridges, that's one check and balance which is being ignored. And going through a border, well, if you look at a truck of copper, it's roughly $330,000. The value of copper on a truck, 33 tons, roughly $10,000 a ton. That's $330,000 per truck. Every 3 trucks is $1 million US. That kind of value at a border with a customs officer who is earning $15,000 per month, it's very easy to go past that customs officer with just a few kwachas. So the amount of illicit financial flows is connected to rampant smuggling, if you like, because these are undeclared exports, and so that tends to really verify the report coming from FIC. In my view, it is just the tip of the iceberg. The numbers are much bigger. If you look at exports, and when I was saying earlier unofficial estimates, these unofficial estimates are done by people like myself. I've done 3 times. I've had a few other people also who have done it. And how have we done this? Very simple. We just leave Livingston. When I go to Livingston for some meeting or holiday, take the family, on the way coming back, I say, I'm going to count all the trucks carrying copper going south as I'm going north towards Lusaka. Only from Livingston to Kafue. Because at Kafue you've got the junction. Anything after Kafue could be going through Livingston, could be going through Chirundu. I count at least 150 trucks. That's $30 million. And I'm talking about in a 6 to 8 hour period. Because I leave Livingston at 11 a.m. I arrive at that junction at maybe 18 hours, thereabouts. What about the rest of the day? The rest of the evening, the morning from 04 up to 11 hours. One route, Livingston only. Now you can imagine if one did a really in-depth assessment of the whole day Livingston route, the whole day Chirundu route, the whole day the Mongu Sioma route, the whole day the Kapirimposhi route, the Chipata route, you would find that the numbers I'm talking about are maybe 1/5 of what is truly happening on the ground, which then allows you to say, okay, DRC is the 2nd largest exporter of copper in the world. Zambia is number 3. Okay, if instead of 150 trucks, which I counted, there are 1,000 trucks combined. Let's give 850 to Congo, which is 5 times more than Zambia. And I don't think Congo is exporting 5 times more than Zambia. It still gives us a minimum of $30 million a day. It could be much, much more. So we need to have the courage now to begin to take control of these economic factors. International development partners tend to not focus on the elephant in the room. They tend to look at the crumbs, squeeze marketeers, but leave the big investors to continue to take wealth out of our country and just leave holes behind. So we need to develop the courage to be able to say, no, we are going to make sure that whatever we're exporting from this country is going to benefit us beyond employing a few people in the mining sector, beyond giving a few contractors some contracts to do some works for the mines, beyond paying 5 to 8% mineral royalty tax, because even mineral royalty tax depends on how much you are extracting and the quality of the extract. If it's copper, it's got a different rate. If it's cobalt, it's got a different rate. So it hovers between 5 and 10%. That's very, very small when you look at the size and value of the exports that are taking place.
Okay. As we move forward to investment potential in Zambia and the trade balance, we know that the country has a bit of a trade deficit. So what's your take on this, and how can we deal with it?
Well, I would say we actually have a huge trade surplus.
Okay.
A trade surplus means you are exporting more than you are importing. It's just that the books
show otherwise,
because of illicit financial flows, show otherwise. And the trade deficit, when it does show a trade deficit, is very small. But like I say, it's an academic discussion, because if you're not talking about facts, then you are just playing around with fake figures. My focus is much more on how do we deal with developing our country. And I've already highlighted one, that if you have foreign currency coming into our banks, several things happen. Kwacha gets stronger, which you and I are experiencing. Interest rates come down. Inflation rate comes down. The cost of doing business comes down. Zambia becomes more competitive with other countries as a production center, whether it's in agriculture, manufacturing, and various others. We then say to ourselves, well, okay, this is one side. What else do we need to do in order to see that this country prospers? In some areas, we've been sluggish. We established the Ministry of Technology and Science 3-4 years ago. And I'm quite concerned that when we established it, our target was for them to reclaim the trades training institutes, bring them back into line, get Zambians to become carpenters and welders and bricklayers and so forth, because you need these people to build a developing economy. Not all of us can be journalists. Not all of us can be economists. It means nothing is happening. Grass is growing. You know, you need people, practical people on the ground that create wealth. Us, we are creating ideas. We create discussion. We don't actually create money per se. So this has not happened. And that's very alarming, because I know big companies here that are doing nice projects. They're importing labor from Zimbabwe, from South Africa, because we don't have that labor. People who know how to do aluminium and glass, people who know how to lay tiles properly, ceilings and roofs and steel structures. So we've shot ourselves in the foot. We've allowed 4 years to pass without making any progress in terms of skills development. 1. 2, I'm concerned that the way we support the private sector has been largely indiscriminate. I'm always interested to listen to the budget speech by the Minister of Finance every year, and he keeps saying we're growing the CDF, we're going to make it bigger, but there's been too much rampant misuse. And this continues, even up to now. If you look at CDF projects, there are projects which are dreamed up by either the Member of Parliament for that constituency or the councillors. They don't come from the grassroots level. In a constituency, the grassroots level is called a zone. And you have 5-6 zones making up one constituency. And the zones are 10 households, 20 households, where people are saying, the problem here is garbage collection. The problem here is drainage cleaning, water, security. They're not talking about tarring a road because an MP lives on that road, or tarring a road because the councillor has a bar on that road. So our CDF is largely not applied in the best way. And we seem to be doing that with a lot of things. Look at the Citizens Economic Empowerment Commission. The loans they give out, hardly 20% of those loans are paid back. So it's free money. So we're not supporting the private sector the way we should. We look at the regulators. Regulators have become a nuisance to the economy. Every regulator has become a profit-making institution, charging 5,000, 10,000 for inspections. And yet we are funding them through the budget. If it is a regulator under health, we are funding the Ministry of Health through the national budget. So why are regulators now become businesses and monopolies? Because you can't get a license without that regulator. And that regulator can charge anything. So we have nuisance value with our regulators. And most of our regulators operate as police officers of a particular sector. So if you look at the Bureau of Standards, they'll be there to shut down businesses and production because of public safety. This product you're producing is not meeting certain standards, and therefore we're worried that people will be harmed by it. And that should only constitute 25% of their work. 75% should be going to a welder who's making window frames and door frames and saying, look, Mr. Bandapano, you can't be making door frames according to the size of the customer. A tall customer comes, you make the door frame 2.5 meters. A fat one comes, you make it wide. A thin one, no. There are standards. These are the standards. And Mr. Welder, if you follow these standards, and all of you in this area, Kalingalinga, Garden, I'm sure Copperbelt, there are so many different places where people are welding. If you follow these standards, you can supply a big construction company, because out of the 15 welders who are in that area, if each one of you is making 10 door frames, same size, 15 times 10 is 150 door frames a day. You tell your Chinese contractor that, how many do you want? Oh, we need 600. We'll be giving you 150 every day for 5 days. You'll have all your door frames. But when they look at the door frames, different sizes, you're not going to do anything. And that's where the regulator comes in, to support the growth of businesses by using standards, by learning to collaborate and work together to cooperate and build the economy. So we need to move away from where we came in the 1980s, 1990s, when government dictated economic performance. We need to move to a point where we are saying government is facilitating and supporting that private sector do things that make sense. And this is where we are also lacking. Another big elephant in the room that is my pet quarrel is that we have two regulators in this economy that are essential to the development of the country. The first one is NAWASCO, National Water and Sanitation Company.
Yes.
Their mandate is basically to endeavor to have water supplied to every Zambian across the country. And not just water, clean, safe, potable water. And of course, the area which they focus on most is water supply in cities and towns. Lusaka Water and Sewage Company In Kitwe, it's called Nkana water. There's Chifubu water. There's Molonga. There's all these Chipata water. In Kabwe, it's called something. Yeah. And Lukanga, I think it is.
Yes.
Yeah. So NAWASCO is living the mandate of saying we want to see investment in water development. We want to see investment in water reticulation. We want to see investment in water supply. And they promote this with one huge proviso, is it must be affordable. So you cannot have a private sector company investing in a water supply company. When I'm talking water supply, I mean community water supply company. Because it's not profitable. Because the regulator is regulating even how much you should charge. So you'll notice that the water supply companies are owned by local government or central government. And it is for very good reason. Because water is life. If people can't have water, they will die. So it's become a national responsibility to supply water. Hence, it's not a commercial business. Like police, it's not a commercial business. The fire brigade is not a commercial business. We've even moved towards education. Grade 1 to grade 12 is no longer a commercial business because government offers it to you for free. Those that are doing it commercially are picking up the crumbs for the people with plenty money who want their kids to be 10 in a classroom and so forth. And fine, that's very good. Supply it to the rich if you can, paid education, because that's what they want. Medical, under NIMA, the National Health Insurance Management Agency, is largely supplied to the people of Zambia to keep Zambians in good health. So educated, good health, those are fundamentals of living a reasonably good life. Now the other regulators are what I'm worried about. I told you there are only two that regulate the tariff. The second one is the Energy Regulation Board. And the Energy Regulation Board was doing exactly the same work as NAWASCO from independence to about 2008, somewhere around there. Then suddenly we changed our policy as a country. Let's commercialize the energy sector. Let the private sector come on board. This is an area which the private sector can do better. Now, what water is to a human being, keeping a human being alive, energy is to an economy. An economy without energy is a dead economy. And this is why the wisdom of our forefathers made sense that you must have two regulators, one on water and one on energy, because the economy will never develop if you allow energy to go out of control. But unfortunately, we've allowed it to go out of control by commercializing. So the push by institutions like ZESCO to say we need to increase tariffs is
Reflective.
not, cost reflective tariff. It's not because ZESCO saw that we need to find money to do certain developments. Because whenever ZESCO wanted to do a development, government would backstop it. Government would get a World Bank loan, whatever, build the Kafue Gorge and so forth. But because we commercialized, private investors came in. And two good examples, a Teshi power station produces 120 megawatts. And Mamba, a recent one, produces 300 megawatts. These people, private investors, go to ERB and they go to ZESCO and say, we can't sell you energy at a loss. Now you see the element of profit has now been introduced. We need to sell this electricity to you at 11 cents US cents per kilowatt hour. Then ZESCO says, okay, now we are buying at this thing. Before this time, we were not buying, we were generating. And we're looking to government to give us money to generate for the people of Zambia. Just like how water is supplied. Now there's a private investor. This private investor is asking for money. The private investor is called an independent power producer. The money which they are demanding is called a power purchase agreement. They sign it. Then ZESCO says, now how are we going to pay these people when we are supplying to Kalingalinga at 1 cent or 2 cents per kilowatt hour? How are we going to pay? And so ZESCO starts asking for what? reflective tariffs. So we introduced the element of commercialization, which now has made energy a commodity, not a catalyst for economic and social development, but a commodity, which has now added to the cost of doing business. So going forwards, we have to ask ourselves, did we make the right decision? And we can put Zambia aside and say, let's look around. They say hindsight gives you 20/20 vision.
Right.
Afterwards, I shouldn't have done this 20 years later. So, but you don't have to do it on yourself. Do it on other people. Get the experience of your grandfather who will teach you that when you go hunting, be careful. You'll be attacked by this kind of an animal because it happened to me. Pick up the lesson from your father that, when you start a business and you go in partnership with a Chakolwa partner, your business is going to collapse. So here we are. We should be doing the same thing. Look at Europe and say, Europe commercialized the energy sector 30 years ago. What has happened to Europe? They have zero manufacturing. All the manufacturing has moved to China, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, because salaries are too high, rentals are too high, energy costs are too high, transport costs are too high. They cannot manufacture in Europe. Let's look at the countries called the Asian Tigers. They all have the energy sector under state ownership, because they're not making money on energy. They're using energy to become facilitators for manufacturing. Now, if this is what's happening outside, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to follow the Europeans, the EU, and collapse our manufacturing, or do we want to follow the Asian Tigers and build a manufacturing economy? And that's the question we need to be asking ourselves now. I think we made a mistake and we need to go back. So energy going forward is going to be a huge factor in whether we are able to develop our country in certain particular areas. For example, manufacturing is very much energy dependent, and that's something we need to reflect on. The other thing that I think is extremely important in terms of where are we going as a nation is the cost of transport. We don't manufacture fuel, we import it. I often have this discussion with colleagues about the smartest people being the people in the villages, because the people in the villages ask themselves always, why am I doing this? Why is this person doing that? You and me, when somebody comes with a pickup Hilux full of caps, we just run and grab 2-3 caps and we run. We don't know what it's for. Even it's for a political party. Even if we are not members of that party, we just grab. And yet people in the rural areas are far more sensible than we are. And I'll give an example. Any rural farmer, any corner of Zambia, will grow maize. When they harvest, they'll get 100 bags, they'll sell 70 bags, keep 30. Why are they keeping 30? They want to Gaia it every month, 2 bags per month, and they get very cheap meal. They're not interested in going to a supermarket and buying meal at 300 when their own meal at home costs 60, 80 kwacha, 100 kwacha maximum. So they appreciate the value of value addition of their maize. That's a villager who has never been to school. We who have got PhDs, master's degrees in Zambia, we have traveled all over the world, we take our hammer mill and we say, no, this hammer mill is useless. I would rather buy a refined product. What is that? Fuel. We've mothballed, put away, closed the doors, put chains on Indeni, and we've gone and imported fuel. And therefore the cost of fuel undoubtedly will continue to be high, because we are getting it through the most expensive medium and we are getting a refined product. And that product is not produced by us. So the wars around the Middle East influence the price of oil, which influence the price of fuel. So that's something I think we also need to reflect on. Are we doing the right thing? In fact, I was musing a few days ago. I think I was on my phone and I saw one of these news bulletins comes up that says Zambia to develop new oil refinery.
In dollar, yeah.
And I'm saying, this is strange. I've yet to hear of a factory that shuts down because they say the technology is old. Every factory has a capacity to be modernized. A factory driven by hand tools. You put in electrical machines, you have modernized it. From electrical machines, you put computerized machines, you have modernized it. For us to shut down and mothball a refinery, it defies logic. But the fact that some other one is come, maybe that was the idea, shut down in Delhi and give a chance to another foreign investor to come on board, I'm not sure. The other thing that I think is important is that we have to promote competition. So I have no issues with Indeni being resurrected and another power station being developed and another refinery, because you're bringing in competition. Prices will come down. But when we start saying, no, we facilitated this company to come in, let's give them 20 years alone, you are killing your economy, because you are putting a monopoly. An institution that is not going to look at the plight of people will just charge as much as it can. You remember when cement was selling 120 kwacha per pocket? I'm talking about 10 years ago. When a new refinery came in, a big one in dollar, I won't mention the name, it went from 110 to 55 kwacha per pocket because of the competition. So competition is something we ought to be promoting. And also, as a nation, one of the biggest things I think that we need to think about going forward is we must move away from road transport and move to rail transport. Rail transport is 25 times cheaper than road transport. And just to illustrate how this works, or how you can calculate it, you take 5 trucks, Volvo, Scania, Mercedes-Benz. Each one is carrying 30 tons of cargo. 5 times 3 is 150 tons with 5 trucks. Take those 5 trucks and squeeze them together and make one locomotive engine. That locomotive engine pulls 100 wagons. Each wagon is 40 tons. So 150 tons for the same power of 5 engines versus 4,000 tons with the same power of 5 engines. Can you see the difference? That's 25 times cheaper. How does that translate into you and me? If I jump on a bus right now to Chipata, it's 450, 420 kwacha. If I go to Kasama, maybe it will be 550, close to 600. Let's say it's 600 to Kasama. 10 times cheaper is 60 kwacha. 20 times cheaper is 30 kwacha. Can you imagine going to Kasama on a train for 30 kwacha? Are you going to go alone? You'll take your whole family. You'll say, we've got grandfather's village there. Let's go and plant 2 hectares of maize in November, December, so that by June, we'll go again for 1 week to go and harvest our maize and bring our meal to Lusaka. We are unable to do that because we are shooting ourselves in the foot by sticking to road transport, which is expensive, which is very difficult to maintain. Your roads are being damaged. You can see we're spending money on dual carriageway and so forth. Trains, nobody's competing with that track. That track belongs just to that one particular transport company.
Mr. Dodia, if we can quickly just move to another topic. By the way, if you're just joining us, our guest this morning on Voice of the People is Economic Analyst and Private Sector Development Association, PSDA Chairperson, Yusuf Dodia. As a country, we are witnessing disturbing developments from the Mufungwe gold rush. What's your take on this particular issue and calls for Bank of Zambia to take up the challenge of securing our gold reserves?
Gold reserves are, you know, the business of gold and emeralds and diamonds is, if you think copper is hidden, this is even worse. You know, and that's why when you see, you've watched the movie Blood Diamonds, you've watched old movies about gold prospecting in the United States, Australia. The people move around with guns because it's so valuable and so small that workers are going to find a piece of gold, put it between their toes and run away with that money. So it's definitely something very complex. I believe that the best we can do is to protect investors in these areas, because there's a lot of would I call it thuggery that goes on. People will steal from each other. People who are not mining will just hang around, and when they see the miner has found something, they'll offer him something. And why is that miner going to give an emerald or a piece of gold to the employer when there's I'm going to be unkind, but it reminds us of the past, those Senegalese dealers that will be buying on the sidelines. So it's very complicated, and I think that the first thing we have to do is to help to provide security, to help to rationalize investment. I'm using the word rationalize because it's very easy to say to stop people from going there. That means that you are giving that opportunity to foreign investors. Right. When really that opportunity also ought to go to Zambian investors. So rationalize. Small scale miners, how are they going to operate? Large scale miners, how are they going to operate? And try to get some level of order. When we get some level of order, then you are able to offer the opportunity to have the gold exchange, like we have the emerald exchange, where you are able to sell your product in a safe environment. You see, if we go back to look at emeralds, there's production of emeralds in Lufanyama, Copperbelt, and there's a lot of selling, backstreet selling in lodges, in dark corners, but big producers are afraid to carry emeralds because you'll be attacked. So what do? They take the emeralds to the emerald auctions. So now it is an activity which is monitored, where the sale is recorded and where the relevant taxes can be collected because of safety. So you find that the big investors in the emerald mines would rather go through this emerald trading system, which in the past was facilitated by Zanaco, so that they can do a safe transaction and not risk being stabbed in the back in the middle of the night. And I think we need to look at that model and see how can we apply the same model to gold, and how can we improve that model to be able to support even the small scale producers, because the harm starts to appear mainly with the small scale producers who are not able to secure themselves, who are exposed to being attacked by other colleagues. We need to find a formula on how to deal with them, and I think it's not so easy. It's quite complex. It requires a lot of investment, especially in security, and it also requires a lot of mentoring, that those who are investing in these areas, precious stones, semi-precious stones, need to recognize that it's worth declaring something and having security than doing everything under the table and risk losing every time you step in the wrong direction. So the cost benefit analysis needs to be done. We've had these kind of discussions, and I'm just looking at a parallel, is getting a work permit. A foreigner who comes to Zambia, find somebody at immigration or immigration consultant, say, look, I need a work permit, I'll give you something. What tends to happen is that every month that immigration officer is calling, oh, Mr. Foreigner, my boss is going through that file. Remember, we did something on that thing. I need a 1,000 to just, keep it calm. But you are paying a 1,000 every month. 2,000, 1,000, 2,000, and you are just being milked the whole year, or 4 years, 5 years. You are here as an investor with this permit that you got illegally because of some corruption. You pay a lot for it, and we've said to investors, don't do that, because if you go the right way and do the right thing, you're going to pay once 5,000 kwacha. You get your 2-year, 3-year permit. You never need to talk to an immigration officer again. So look at the benefits. The shortcut, you will get your license in 1 week, permit in 1 week, 2 weeks, and you will suffer persecution and extortion. the right way, it might take a month or even 2 months, but you know you are very safe. And that's really the kind of dialogue we need.
But Mr. Dodia, as we conclude, maybe we can just touch quickly on policy areas. I know you mentioned the Ministry of Science and Technology. That was an area of concern to you. What other areas as private sector are of concern, or areas where you would want as a sector to make recommendations to government?
For me, I think number one, we need to change the mandate of regulators to be facilitators and not police. We need, for the purposes of saying we want to build our economy, we need government, policy issues for government to say we will buy Zambia. We will not buy foreign desks, foreign tables for our offices. We are going to buy furniture that is made in Zambia. So you Zambians, get off your beds, stop sleeping in the afternoons, go and manufacture furniture. We as GRZ are committing to buying from you, for government, for the hospitals, for the schools, for any entity that is state-owned. And that means that the private sector know that they have a captured market. All they have to do is wake up in the morning, work hard, and deliver. And if it starts there, then you begin to see an economy that is hinged on domestic commitment. I think that's extremely important. Policy issues, I've talked about the transport system. We really need to revamp that and refocus. The energy sector, very important. We also need to recognize that, I touched on it earlier, but it rears its ugly head every now and then. This thing of protecting certain investors at the expense of the economy is terrible. We see it with large corporates that come into this country. They have an ear of some powerful leader. Next thing, duties are being imposed on products similar to the production which is being made in Zambia, as a way of protecting the local investor, but at the expense of the Zambian people. We are seeing it. There's food products which you can import from Zimbabwe and Tanzania at half the price that we are buying it in Zambia, because we are trying to protect a Zambian investor who is inefficient, who is overcharging. So I think that government needs to have the capacity to do the research and call that investor and say, look, we've heard your complaint, but you are inefficient. You are exploiting people here. And because we're a free market economy, it is our duty to promote competition with you, so that you and your competitors will fight it out and bring your prices down, improve your quality, and serve the people of Zambia. So, I look at a country like Liberia. I've done a few things in Liberia. It has a population the size of Lusaka, the whole country. There are 5 service providers of mobile industry. 5. In Zambia, we have 3. And prices in the mobile industry don't come down. They keep going up because the competition is not very aggressive. So it is government's role to make sure competition is always aggressive. There's no need for government to talk about the price of matereto, nshima and beef, because there's competition, fierce competition. Bread, fierce competition. Guest houses, fierce competition. And that shows you how an economy can benefit, that the people in that economy get the best deal that is available. So we need to not just talk about competition, but we need to be seen to be facilitating it through the role of government. Any investor who comes and says, I'm investing in solar, don't give licenses to other people, only us, because we're bringing in $5 million and we need to be protected. That's an investor who's not investing. That's an investor who wants to take advantage of the vulnerability of our economy. Investors should be able to fight with each other and give the best to the Zambian people. And I think that one of the big things we need to do as a nation is we need to look inwards. We tend to always look for advisors that are out there. Europe, the USA. We're 60 years since independence. We've got people in this country who have got brains, who have got experience, who can advise government to do things in the best interest of the Zambian people. People out there, we need to take a step back and say, but we fought these people for independence. And then we struggled to get independence from them. Now we're going back to them and saying, advise us on how we should do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't seem to make too much good sense. So I think we need to use domestic resources as much as we can, so that we're always doing development, thoughts, programs in the best interest of our Zambian people. The opportunities are wide. I look at tourism. Tourism in the Western Province has hardly been touched. The Mongu floodplains, the Zambezi floodplains in Mongu are beautiful tourist opportunities if you allow the private sector people to come up with ideas on how we can expand tourism in Western Province, in Northwestern, in Luapula, Mtumbachushi, Kabweluma waterfalls, Lake Bangwelu, Lake Mweru, beautiful places. Northern Province, we have 19 waterfalls that are significant, but in total we have more than 400. We have 4 major lakes, 7 major rivers. Tourism in Zambia can multiply times 10 if we do the right things. And the public-private partnership opportunities are where government says, we want to build an airport in Mungu, international airport or whatever size of airport. Let's do the runway. Let's do the landing equipment and security systems. Bring the private sector. We design the airport terminal building and we say, look, you want to do a restaurant. The cost of developing that is 200,000. Put money in it. You want to do a bar, you want to do a massage parlor, whatever it is. So you find that the private sector are all coming together to build that terminal building. Government doesn't have to do it alone. And then suddenly you've got aeroplanes that are flying into Mongu specifically for the Komboka ceremony, and people leave. You know, tourism is about efficiency.
Right.
People want to do a lot of things in a short space of time, and therefore getting from one place to another becomes essential. So we could speak the whole day about the opportunities,
Indeed.
the great opportunities that are in front of us. We just have to be better organized.
Mr. Dodia, many thanks for this insightful conversation this morning. We thank you for taking time to come to the Power FM.
It's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Our guest this morning on Voice of the People was Economic Analyst and Private Sector Development Association, PSDA Chairperson, Yusuf Dodia. Once again, many thanks. Very good morning to you.
Voice of the People, Monday to Friday,